So next up we have Pretty Boy Detective Club. This is the Nisi one this season. Um, yeah, let's dive into it.
Okay, well, I made it to the start of episode 6 with that one, and before I hit my breaking point, and we'll talk about why that happened in a little bit, but, yeah, I guess I just didn't enjoy this one, which was a bit unexpected for me, because normally I consider myself a Nisi fan. Love Monogatari, really liked the Zaragoto anime, the Imperfect Girl manga I really liked. Generally a fan of Nisi but this one was just kind of boring. It felt like more fluff without actually saying anything most of the time. So this one's a detective series, so I'm not saying that I like projected my thoughts, my expectations onto this one, but since it's Nisi I was expecting him to either subvert or be metatextual with the detective genre, and he did in certain ways, but not in ways that were interesting. Like, he just straight up goes supernatural with a lot of the stuff. But he also plays it off as it not being supernatural, really. Like, he tries to cram it into realism for some reason. Just wasn't enjoying it. Which is a shame, because this is a fucking gorgeous looking anime. Love the aesthetic of it, the character designs, the color palette, the lighting, all of it was so fucking pretty to look at. Not a lot that really, like, outside of that, like, there wasn't a lot of great directing, I would say. It's a very slow. Well, it's not even slow. It just didn't hold my attention. I think that's mostly from the writing standpoint, but yeah, generally gorgeous looking anime. Um, yeah, really cute character designs for the cute boys. Really liked Sotoin as a character was really interesting for a little bit, and then she just kind of stagnated. Um, I will tell you the thing that broke me off of the series was at the start of it. Well, at the end of episode 3, she makes this like ardent plea to join the Pretty Boys Club. She's like super into it and really wants to join. And then at the start of episode 6, she's like running away from school trying to get out of club duty, which makes no fucking sense. Like, in the intervening episodes, there isn't anything to suggest that she was really annoyed with the club, except maybe being put in a bunny suit, but even then that didn't seem like super annoying to her. So I don't understand why she was trying to get out of club duty. It just seemed like it felt like it was there for the sake of the gag rather than for the sake of the character, and that kind of pissed me off. But in general, this was just fucking boring a lot of the time, and it just felt it's like if it's Nisi writing without anything substantial behind it. Or maybe I just missed something because I was so fucking bored with it. Who knows? But yeah, not a big fan of this one, unfortunately. So that kind of sucks, but it is what it is. So let's move on.
Alright, we're gonna take Pretty Boys off the list, unfortunately. Sorry, Nisi but oh well. Next is Wonder Egg. Okay. Well, fuck it, let's just get into it.
Where do I start with this one? Let's talk about the good stuff. Because there is a lot of good stuff. Ending aside, there is a lot of good stuff in this show. A lot of people who dislike the show have described it as trauma porn, to which I say, yes, please. But okay, so this is a show that I could not recommend to people without a lot of content warnings on it, because there is a lot of very dark and heavy stuff discussed very bluntly. It is it tackles stuff like abuse and self-harm and gender identity and people not accepting of gender identity and just a whole bunch of issues that can really fuck people up psychologically. And it presents them plain as day. And very beautifully. And very matter-of-factly. I think, because there's not a lot of melodrama per se in this. There's just a lot of trauma. And that's one of the things I really like about it. Not to say that I dislike melodrama. I love melodrama. But it's just so raw and visceral how this show portrays its conflicts. And beautifully animated at that. Like, I posted this before of like, if you had smashed the first 4 episodes together and told me that it was a movie, I would believe you, because it is film quality for a lot of its run. I'm losing my train of thought. This is also, I think this is the only anime I've seen that actually, like, directly addresses, like, cutting, like self-harm as in cutting. Like, one of the characters, Rika, you could see, like, the scars on her arm from the cutting she does. And there's also some, like, a lot of symbolic stuff at work here as well. And, like, it's especially, like, one of my favorite elements of that was like, okay, so clearly this show is being very clever about a lot of stuff. So, and like the weapons that the characters use when they go into this weird dreamscape world to save other people, basically save the souls of girls who have committed suicide. Also, suicide. A lot of suicide in this show. Be prepared for that. But, so they have these weapons to fight these little minion things called See-No Evils. Really great name for these things, by the way. Just like, the first episode really hammers it in. It's like, it's pointing out the flaws of a society that just looks away from the trauma that is happening right in front of them. But, like, the girls have these different weapons that they use to fight. And, like, the main girl, has her pen, like a 3-color pen transforms into, like, a mace. And, like, okay, that represents her school and the trauma she incurred from being at school and the stuff that happened there. And then Rika's like, her weapon's a box cutter. Pretty obvious. And then for most of the show's run, like, the episode itself is very blunt about what it's trying to say. Like, it'll be like, this episode is about bullying. This episode is about gender identity. And it's like very purposely hits you in the forehead with it just to make sure you don't miss. But there's a lot of, like, underlying ideas that are a lot more subtle, that you have to really read into a little bit more to really get what the underlying character motivations for certain characters are. And it's just really well presented, very raw and brutal. Soundtrack is really good, and again, fucking gorgeous animation. Absolutely fluid, very, like, not only are the action scenes baller as fuck and high octane and just explosive, but the character animation is fucking phenomenal. Some of the best character animation I've ever seen from anime. So fucking good. Then we get to the stinger at the end of episode 10. Imagine you're just walking. No, you're running at this point. You're running. This show is fucking trucking along. It's going, it's going. There is no brakes on this fucking train. It is just gonna keep going. And all of a sudden, it's not as if you, like, stepped off an edge, because, like, you could, like, see an edge coming. It's more like the ground suddenly disappears completely from underneath you. And there's that little window of, you think the ground is still there, your brain hasn't quite caught up to the fact that the ground is not there anymore. So you're still going along, you're thinking, like, oh, you're still running, you still think you're running at full speed. And eventually you realize that the ground is not there anymore. And I gotta say, even if this show had not been delayed to hell and back, like, the episode 8 is a fucking recap episode because production fell so far behind because of COVID, and it was a small team anyway, so it's understandable, but winter season really got fucked in terms of anime production. Like this, Skate the Infinity, Attack on Titan, Promised Neverland, Season 2, a lot of stuff got fucked. So that's kind of understandable. But seeing episode 13, the special that aired, like, taking the half recap out, that doesn't matter. But looking at the actual episode that they had, this show was not going to end well to begin with. This show was not going to end on a solid footing to begin with. Because starting, like, at the end of episode 10, the fucking weird bug girls show up and start just with the gratuitous violence, and I'm thinking, okay, gonna need some explanation, which is ironic because at the start of episode 10, Akka and Ura-Akka, the two, like, scientists basically who are running this whole dreamscape thing, are about to explain the plot to you, and then the girls are like, wait, hold on, I'm getting a text, and then they just start texting each other and just completely fuck off, and I'm like, okay, this show has, now, to me, that read as, okay, this show has no intention of explaining itself. I'm fine with that, as long as the thematic content ends solidly. It does not. That's the thing. I would have been fine if the narrative had not stuck, with the narrative not sticking the landing, if the thematic elements had stuck the landing. They kinda do a little bit. I'm being real kind towards this ending if you can't tell, because I really loved the first 9 3/4 episodes of this show. Well, 8 3/4 because one was a recap, but this show was so fucking phenomenal until that point. So I'm being, and fuck it, I don't have to justify myself, but it kind of ends with how do I describe this? Well, first, this recap episode, or this final episode, starts with one of my 3 least favorite tropes. I have 3 tropes that I just don't fucking like. 2 of them are tied into each other. One is body swapping / mind control. I just never see it done well. I'm not going to say I inherently dislike these tropes. It's just that I mostly see them done poorly. The only time I've seen, like, body swapping or body or shape shifting done in a way that was not trite or rote to me was Little Witch Academia, and it only did it for like a quarter of the episode. Second one is time travel. Only time travel show I've liked is Steins Gate. And the third one, which this show does, is rewriting timelines so that people don't know you. Which is one of the reasons why I don't rate Disappearance of Haruhi Suzumiya as highly as other people. It's it's the same idea every single time. I like it's just the panic moment of uh not recognizing your own reality. Like, fine the first time I saw it, but I never see it done in an interesting way after that, and this show just kind of does that mostly. It kind of course corrects after that by having the main girls still remember each other, with the exception of Nehru, except it is. Turns out Nehru was an AI the whole time. Okay. Um, and so of course corrects and has I and the other girls meet up and try discuss what to do next. It almost goes like at the end of episode 12. It almost goes off in a Madoka direction where I wants to be a warrior of Eros, which is basically like the good guys in this show, and she wants to save other people, wants to save everyone. Again, like the end of Madoka Magica, where Madoka sacrifices herself to save all the other magical girls. But then it just kind of, but it doesn't really get to that point. It just kind of implies that we'll eventually get to that point. I'm really trying to put words onto this finale because it's it doesn't reach a thematically satisfying conclusion. It doesn't say, it hints at one. It hints at one, but like it hints that because like a lot of I'm gonna eventually discuss this when I talk about Tokyo Revengers probably, but a lot of these, if you could redo your past, how would it affect you? And I gotta be honest, the only one I don't list that in my tropes. I might, but the only one I've seen done well in that regard, in a thematically satisfying way, to me, is the Demon Slayer movie. Because it basically just says, yeah, it'd be cool to live in the past again, when everything was cool, and just make it so that stuff didn't happen, the bad stuff didn't happen. But we don't live in that reality. We live in the present, and we have to deal with it. So, yeah, anyway, I'm really running off in all directions now. But, yeah, this was not... I was really hoping to finish this episode and immediately, like, start screaming, like, fuck you, Twitter, you were wrong, I knew this show was gonna be good. No, Twitter kind of got it right. And the final episode also had so many fucking animation faults in it. Like, there's that there was that viral clip of I running away and it just looks like she's running in place. But also, it's immediately apparent that the camera work had to compensate for it as well. Like, there's a lot more zooms and pans, like infinitely more zoom in and zoom outs and pans in the final episode than there are in any other episode of the series. So even the 3-month delay didn't allow it to completely finish. So, would I still recommend this show? I think, to be honest, I think I would. I really think I would, because most of this show is still really good. And even the massive string of explanations at the end of this episode, while they don't reach a final conclusion, they're still really interesting. Except for the last episode, which is very hit and miss. But it leaves the characters in an interesting spot. Like, there is sort of an open-ended quality to it. Again, I'm being real... really playing devil's advocate for this ending, but I think it could work. I think people would still like it as long as they know that the ending is fucky. As long as they know that. So I think that's all I have to say on that. Really wish it had stuck the landing, but I guess it again, the ground disappeared from under them. So let's go to the list.
Alright, I just want y'all to know that I spent like a solid 20 minutes off camera trying to figure out exactly where Wonder Egg should go in my list. I ended up putting it in like, where'd I put it? In like the strong 7 range. Right here. No, right here. But again, that's being very generous because to be honest, I had no fucking idea how to place this. Because like, the series, the first 12 episodes, that's like a solid, light, a decent 8. It was really good. And then that final episode was just not. So, know that I placed this without really knowing how to place this. So we're gonna cut that out. And I believe I put it right there. Right above the Demon Slayer movie. That'll definitely get some people talking. So, strong 7. Alright. That's out of the way. Let's get on to something that I know will be good. So, Zombieland Saga Revenge. Second season of Zombieland Saga. I am hype. Let's fucking do this.
That was so fucking fun. Man, it feels so good to get back into Zombieland Saga. Where the fuck do I start with this one? I think that's how I opened the last segment of this video, but in a much different way. Zombieland Saga continues to be Zombieland Saga. It is fun as fuck. This weird mishmash of comedy, variety show, historical drama stuff that just works so well. And I think this season in particular really nailed what the point of Zombieland Saga was, is that it's a show about persistence and what am I trying to say? It's a show about staying true to your dreams, which was very prevalent in season 1, but also just I'm trying to let's back up a little bit. So God, there was just so many fucking cool, memorable moments from this season that are just like episode 2, let's start at episode 1 where I get fucking performance anxiety, secondhand performance anxiety from watching this fucking first episode. I'm like, man, you're already starting with this, huh? Hoo boy. I took a nap in between episodes because I was so tired today, but that first Revenge really is the best subtitle for this second season, because like this is them coming off after a massive failure of a concert, and they're just trying to get I should have expected them to totally just start like in medias res with this fucking show. Like it starts off with them just doing a bunch of odd jobs. Like the second season ended on the first season ended on such a high note. Then, I mean, like it's almost kind of like the Shirobako movie where it's like, yeah, we kind of got fucked. And the comeback from that, their revenge after getting fucked over at that giant concert that failed. Although technically it was Kotaro's fault, so I guess they're getting revenge on Kotaro. But yeah, just the energy that this show has is so good. And I thought of this like in the early episodes of this season, is that I'm not a fan of like cringe comedy. That is not really my thing. But like Zombieland Saga is like the furthest I will dip into cringe comedy. Like it's not, I wouldn't exactly describe Zombieland Saga as cringe comedy, but it has elements of that go, what are you doing, man? Oh no. But it does it in such a fun and exciting way that I really get into it. This show is so fun and also extremely heartfelt and meaningful. Like like on the surface it feels like very flippant about stuff, like none of this shit fucking matters, it's a comedy, but there is a very underlying current of, we're doing this for Saga, we want to revive this prefecture, and we want to be able to bring our music to everyone else. Which, and I think the 2-episode flashback sequence in this episode, it's episodes 8 and 9, I think, really drive that point home. And it's just like, only Zombieland Saga could throw a 2-episode historical drama in the middle of an idol comedy and make it fucking work. Like, this shit was like straight out of like Rurouni Kenshin or something. Just solid Meiji era historical drama. In that, like, this one was Yugiri's backstory as the legendary courtesan, and with also had Kotaro's predecessor, where we sort of see like the zombie formula coming together. Like, there's so many like almost Hollywood-esque plot twists, or like just like little stingers of everything coming together, and it's just so hype seeing it. Like, it turns out the bartender is a zombie, or just immortal or something, or who fucking knows what. But it's so cool. And just even on an individual episodic basis, everything was so fun. Episode 2, it went from fucking cool to fucking sad to fucking hype in the span of about 3 minutes. Episode 2, the one with White Ryu. Then Saki is... I always say I is my favorite character just because she is me. But Saki is so fucking fun. Like, she's a real close to. Like, I love that she's the only one who's actually like pop culture trendy, but she's from the 90s, so her pop culture trendiness is like 30 years out of date. And so she's like basically has a crush on this aging rock star. It's so fun. But then like we get that little stinger of like sadness right at the end of the episode, where it's like the White Ryu is like, when you've matured a bit, come find me. Because, like, White Ryu is not a pedo, obviously. But then we get that moment of Saki going, I'm a zombie. I'm not going to age. And just the crushing reality of that for a brief moment. Like, in episode 2 of this season, it's just... And it comes fucking out of nowhere, and it's just so real and heartfelt. And then immediately it's followed up by fucking hype of her singing a cover of that guy's song, and it being the fucking best thing ever. Saki's songs are always my favorite from this series. Like Toko Dance from the first season. This one was so fucking good. And yeah, the songs were so fucking... This season ends with, like, an actual concert. Like, the back half of this episode is just a full-on concert. And in fact, I think the last episode is, like, 3 or 4 minutes longer than a normal episode. I don't know how they managed that, but they did. And there's, like, 3 full-length songs in it. And it's so fucking hype. And I love, like, the lead up to that actual concert really shows, like it's like there's a disaster hits Saga, and then like they put on a concert as like a charity concert, and it's like at first it feels like very like, oh, weird comedy, like we're just gonna hand wave the rules of it just to make this work. But they really drive home the point that all of the connections that Fran Shushu has made over the years with the pharmaceutical company, with Drive-In Tori, with other idol groups, those connections are what's allowing them to achieve their dream and to allow Saga to reach a point where they prosper. And it's just so uplifting and emotional and fucking fun. If you haven't seen Zombieland Saga for some reason, fucking watch this show. It's so fun. Again, it's a little cringe, but it's still good. I'm not going to talk about the after credits scene because what the fuck? If you don't know what I'm talking about, all I'm going to say is panty and stocking. That's all I'm going to say. If there's a season 3 of Zombieland Saga, we'll see. But I think that's what the point was. If you're unfamiliar, Panty and Stocking has an after credit scene that basically ends as like a big trolly joke. And like 90% of the people who watched it didn't fucking get the joke and thought that it was actually supposed to be meaningful. But it's similar to that. So, yeah. Watch Zombieland Saga. Oh, and the fucking animation was so fucking cool. The only bad thing about the animation is that Mappa worked their fucking animators half to death. There's still a lot of CG dance sequences, but honestly, I think of the idol shows that use CG character models for their song sequences, I would say Zombieland Saga has the best CG. It's a little weird. The mouths are very weird, but they emote so well, and the motion capture is so good that it just works. And it's just so hype. And the choreography for the concerts is so good. Yeah, this is it. And it's a show about finding your dream, achieving your dream, making connections with that dream, and allowing everyone to prosper in the process. It's so good. I love Zombieland Saga.
Alright, we're gonna move Zombieland up in the list. Where did I decide to put it? Somewhere around here. There it is, right under, a little bit under, just a tad shy of Skate the Infinity, in my opinion. So we're gonna give that a decent 8. Fucking good show.